Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. And of course, I want to say Shalom to Yaakov Nakbalt out there, doing this truth diligently. Coming at you once again with another lesson, and more specifically, a part 2 to Here's What the Worldly Women Think About You. Now, if you haven't caught it, I made this just the other day on July 1st. It is now July 3rd, technically, because we're doing this in the early morning hours. And then I made, after that, a quick hit. So today, we're going back into this. And so if you haven't watched part 1, I recommend going and watch part 1, because it's going to make more sense and be more cohesive. But if not, this stands as its own as well. So again, all praise, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bashem, Rakakwadash. We're going to jump right into this. So, where'd we leave off? So we left off, I had a couple more on the sticky note, and the ones I had on the sticky note, where's my other sticky note? Because I made a new one. We had 2 Timothy 3 and 6 through 7 that I wanted to touch on, and then the only other one I had on there was Proverbs 14 and 1. So, before I made this lesson, I actually went ahead and added some more on. So we got, quite a few here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 different scriptures here, and we'll see where the Spirit takes us for the other ones if we get any, or if not. So I perceive that this will probably be a shorter one, but you never know how it goes. So let's just go through it and see what's going on. So let's get. So let's just read the title and the little, not really question, but statement that she made here, because we dealt with the first part in the first lesson, and then we're dealing with the second part down here in this one. So it says, have y'all encountered black Israelite men? All right, that's a question she has. It said, I had a so-called black Israelite man tell me he can have babies by a non-black woman, and the child will still be black because the seed comes from men, but I can't because I'm a woman, and the child won't be black if the father's white or non-black. So a good majority of yesterday's lesson was explaining the confusion that's happening there, and really translating this, what she said here to how it was really most likely said to her. She had a so-called, I'm not going to say so-called because that's what we are. She had a Hebrew Israelite man, all right, tell her that he can have babies with non-Israelite women. He can have babies with heathen nations, right? And the babies will still be Israelites because the seed comes from the man. But she can't because she's a woman, and the child will not be an Israelite if the father is a, non-Israelite, a heathen, all right, specifically an Edomite, okay? So we proved that yesterday. That's 100% correct. Now, the second statement is, it says, he also says, my purpose in life is to get married and have a child with only a Hebrew Israelite. And since I'm not married nor have a child, I'm not following Yahweh's commandments. It says, to me, this religion sounds very black male-centered and very misogynistic. I can't believe any black woman would want to join this. Yeah, I couldn't believe any black woman, would want anything to do it, because black means void of light. Okay, and again, we talked about yesterday that's why skin color based ethnicity is fucking stupid. All right, there's no land of black, so you're not black, and there's no land of white, so they're not white. Okay, so that's just, there's no land of Brownia. All right, there's no land of Yellowtopia. All right, there's none of those. All right. So it doesn't make any sense to call yourself by those names, because that's not your ethnic origin. Your ethnic origin is not black. Your ethnic origin is Israelite. You are an Israelite. Their ethnic origin it's not white, and it's not even European. Their ethnic origin is as Edomites. Okay, going back to the biblical identities. So of course, and I mentioned it before, the apostles, I mentioned it before, those go back into things that are called covering castes. Okay, covering caste, and the Lord's gonna destroy those. Let's go and get that covering caste. And that's what these Edomites had put, upon not only Israelites, but upon all nations, even including himself. So it says, Isaiah 25 and 7, it says, and he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast over all people. It shows you it's over all people. Okay, you got the heathen nations and the Israelites that are being called by, these different covering casts. It says, and the veil that is spread over all nations. It's like unto a veil. And you can go and define veil, all right, it's V-A-I-L, I believe it put, let me see, but that's the archaic spelling. V-A-I-L, all right, which is the archaic version of V-E-I-L. Okay, a veil is a short piece of fabric worn over the head, face, or shoulders. All right, but it's from the Latin velium, meaning cloth, covering, or sail. So it's really something. It's something that conceals, masks, or obscures, as you can see. So yeah, but if you look at veil, it should say it's an archaic version of V-E-I-L. Let's see, spelling mistake. You might be thinking of veil. It's not a spelling mistake. It's just the old version. Archaic form. Veil. Thing take off. A veil. Well, what you can do, this might have been a translation error. What you can do is you can go to Blue Letter Bible and you can type in Isaiah 25:7. You can go to the word veil. Okay.
Strong's H 4541. Masecha. Masecha.
All right, Maseka, which means the number 2 here, which is a web, a covering, a veil, woven stuff. All right, let's go to the root word. What does it say? Be anointed. So yeah, that's just the root. But yeah, so a web, a covering, a veil. Okay, you can see it's actually spelled correctly here, V-E-I-L. So I'm not sure if that was an older spelling or if that could have been a translation error. All right, there's some like that. There's another one that instead of saying S-O-N, it's S-U-N. All right, what makes it look like there's sun worship or anything. So sometimes there's spelling errors, so it could be something like that. But sometimes it's archaic spelling. So I wanted to see if it was archaic spelling, and it doesn't seem like it is. So that seems to be like a spelling error, but it should be V-E-I-L, right? So, and we just defined what a veil is. And again, they put the covering calves upon all nations. But again, that's not what we're really talking about today. So, but that's something that needs to be spoken again, because that's why skin color-based ethnicity it's not going to get you anywhere. It's very confusing. It's just about as confusing as using the term God for the Father, and also all gods. Okay. Because then you start getting confused when you say, oh, God's many, Lord's many. What do you mean? There's one God. Yeah, there is one God with a capital G. But if you look at the other times it mentions gods, it's mentioned a tiny g. All right. We were even called gods. Okay. I've called you gods. But we don't have big G's. We have little G's. Okay. So that's the thing. Understand the difference between the capital G and the lower G. And that's why you shouldn't refer to the Most High as God. I mean, just using the term Heavenly Father or God, even the omnipotent, all right, the omnipotent one is a better term than just God. I mean, you should actually refer to him as his name. His name is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahweh Shai, all right, if you go back into the correct Paleo-Hebrew. But if you're going to just not use his name, you'd be better off using another term but God, like Heavenly Father or the Most High or something like that, because at least that's some distinguishing. Okay, you're not going to get the Heavenly Father, the Most High, confused with other gods and lords. Okay, that's mentioned. Okay, and the Lord is mentioned. All right, the gods many and lords many. All right, but one Yahweh. Okay, so if you read that verbatim, it doesn't make much sense. There's gods many and lords many, but only one God. I mean, it just said there's gods many and lords many, but then it's saying there's one God. Well, that's because his name's not God. His name is Yahweh. See, and that's the thing where Christians get confused. It's just the same confusing shit. All right, it's confusing shit is what it is. That and the Christians are, oh, don't swear. Well, good thing I didn't swear. All right, I just used harsh language instead. But which is not a sin, by the way. That's, again, we've talked about that time and time again. I'm not going to go into it again, at least not in this lesson. But it's the same thing with skin color based ethnicity. It doesn't fucking make any sense. All right, and it's confusion. It's a stumbling block for those that that aren't in this truth, and it's stumbling block for the Christians. It's stumbling block for just about anybody. They don't understand it. So you can see this, just the way that this lady was wording things. She was having a hard time, explaining what was really said. And I can deduce, because again, being in this truth and understanding how the men speak, I know exactly verbatim pretty much what this man said. All right, it wasn't anything like this. So, excuse me. And now, today's focus. It says, the other thing I want to say, it said, he says, my purpose in life is to get married and have a child with only a Hebrew Israelite, which is true. Men can go and get with the other nations, as he was saying, because they're not bringing forth the seed of the enemy. Okay, they're not making more. Say if you get with a Chinese person, right? Their biblical lineage is a Moabite. Okay, so if you have a so-called black man, an Israelite, from the house of Judah, that goes and gets with this Moabite, he's bringing forth more Judite children. We proved that yesterday. So he's not bringing forth the seed of the enemy. But if you, as a black woman, you don't bring forth any seed. You give birth to whoever the father's seed is. It's his seed. Okay, so whatever he is, all right, that baby's going to be. So you're basically acting as an oven, all right, to birth Edomites. All right, you're bringing more Edomites into the world. So, and you're not supposed to be doing that. You're supposed to be married to an Israelite man. Okay, not black. All right, because they could be black and they could end up being an Edomite. All right, you have to, it's through the spirit. Anyway, they could be so-called Mexican. It doesn't have to be a black Israelite. That's the thing. That's what that whole black shit. It gets confusing. Everything in the world is a bunch of confusion. And the Lord's not the author of confusion. That's why you have to explain it and teach it a very specific way, because people don't understand it and their mind gets all fucked up, which I'm not really too concerned and worried about if their minds are getting all fucked up. None of us are, because at the end of the day, if your mind's getting fucked up, you're being deceived by someone. Like the Lord says, the deceived and the deceiver are his. So that deceiver shouldn't be doing that to you, but if you're being deceived, that's the Lord obviously didn't want you to get the right picture. And there's a lot of people in the world with messed up minds. So it says, and since I am not married nor have a child, I am not following Yahweh's commandments. Now, you can't go too deep with it, because at the end of the day, it's not a sin for a woman to not have a child. All right, now it'd be good to have a child, but it's also understandable in this current society that we're in, and we're almost out of here, that now is not really the time to be having children. It's really not even the time to be being married as a man, but as a woman, it would be most prevalent to you to have a husband. Right now, that doesn't mean there aren't going to be women that are saved that didn't necessarily have a husband. You might get one at the last moment. All right, the Lord is not what's the word? Not cut and dry. There's a word to it. He's not as I don't want to explain it to where it doesn't bring any confusion in. Really, if you get confused, you get confused. But I don't want to say cutthroat. He's not as the Lord throws curveballs every once in a while. So yes, the vast majority of women are going to be saved through their husbands and delivered through a man, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be women that didn't have a man that aren't delivered. All right, it can happen. It's just definitely not going to be again, anything's possible with the Lord. Okay, it's just like not everybody has spiritual power right now, but nobody does. But there might be someone out there that has a little semblance of it. For example, there was Simeon Toko. All right, he had spiritual power, so that's kind of like being an odd one out. Okay, so it can happen. It's just not something that is going to be real prevalent. More than likely, if you're an elect woman, you'll probably meet with an elect man at the end days. And say if you had a husband that wasn't of the elect or something like that, more than likely that man could end up being killed off, and die. All right, he would have to die to free you from that, and then you would end up getting married to an Israelite man. Many different things can happen. Many different things can happen. That man that you're with that you didn't even think was a Israelite, he can turn out to end up finding something out, find he's an Israelite out, and find it out at the right last moment. There's many different things that the Lord can have happen, right? If he's an Edomite and you're stuck with him, like you can have him, die in a car crash or burn up in a fire, something, right? And then you'd be loosed from that. And if you're a elect woman, more than likely something like that's going to happen, because it's not going to be a fortunate situation for you to be with an Edomite man, right? But you can't leave that man currently, so the Lord's going to have to interject. So, you can't be so heavily minded that you're no earthly good, okay? And this person that was speaking, I doubt that it was a GMS member. Just by what you said here, purpose in life is to get married and have children. And since I'm not married or have a child, I'm not filling Yahweh's commandments. I feel like that's not necessarily something GMS would say specifically. They would say that a woman's purpose in life is to get married and have a child, but they're not going to say you need to go and get married and have a child immediately. That's not something that GMS would say. Again, GMS would, be, I watch GMS. Okay, that's where I get my understanding from through Yahweh Shem Yahushai. So, and that those brothers out there, just like I'm saying, is now's not really the time for all the, bidding the marriage and all that stuff like that. Again, it's just, again, but as a woman, again, it's not really bidding for marriage. For men, a lot of men aren't really looking for a wife right now, but in the end days, it's going to be, we're already in them, but it's going to be a little bit different. Lord could have mercy on you, could have that, but it's especially not the time for a child, right? Especially not a time for a child. And we know the scriptures, be fruitful and multiply, but again, it's not a good situation, especially it could be a stumbling block to you, all right, as a woman. Even as a man, all right, you might have it's going to be harder for those that have children. Apostles have said that, because when the mark of the beast comes, all right, it's either take this or, you won't be able to eat and your children won't be able to eat. That's going to be a temptation and a stumbling block for many. They're going to say, well, I can't just let my kids start. When they're pointing at their mouth and say, Daddy, I'm hungry, I need to eat. My stomach hurts. I feel sick. When I lay down, I can feel the room spin, right? Then that's where you're gonna be like, oh shit, I need to take it, and that's gonna be, or they're gonna say, oh, you take this chip, or we're gonna kill your wife and your child, and that's gonna be a stumbling block for a lot of people, man. That's gonna be what ends up, fucking them over at the end of the day. So, that's just one of those things where, yeah, you should, as a woman, you should be, if you don't have a husband, you should, I won't say fully actively, because it'll come organically. But if you just throw your shot out there, if there's single, men in the truth, you can throw your shot out there. But as far as children go, it's not really the best time for that, because you're not going to get to enjoy them. All right, especially under the curses. You shall have a child, and they shall go into captivity. We can go and get that. This is right here. 41, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. So you're not gonna be able to really even enjoy them at the end of the day. So again, having a child is not in the utmost important currently. But yes, that is the natural purpose of a woman. But again, right now you can't be so heavenly minded, no earthly good, and you want to go I want to have 32 children. No, you go right ahead, but I don't see how that's going to be, good for you. All right, that's not going to really be something good for you. And there's a lot of people that get too overly heavily minded, overzealous, over righteous, and they think that now's the time to be doing all these different things. Now's the time to be learning, right? Now's the time to be making sure you're getting right with Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and correcting yourself, correcting flaws that you do have. If you're stubborn, or you got some addictions or drug issues or something like that, that really, if you're in this truth, you shouldn't have. But if you're just coming in the truth, getting that shit, putting down the pipe, all right, putting down the drugs, the pills, whatever it is. Now, I mean, like the apostles say, you should try to find an herbal remedy, all right, as much as possible. But if there's not, that doesn't mean you're necessarily wicked because you took a pill because, you had to, for certain, health issues or extreme pains, certain things aren't going to work. So you're not wicked if you do that. Of course, Yahweh Shem Yahushai knows, but you try to find an herbal remedy if you can. But we also know that the same, the painkillers, those are, you're not going to be the most potent herbs that the Lord gave are not necessarily legal everywhere. I mean, you got marijuana, but that's, decent for some pain. If you have really strong pain, you need like things like opium, and that's highly regulated. The only way you're going to be able to get opioids is, through pills. All right, they're not going to just pass you an opium tea like could happen back in the day. Now, you could say, oh, you could grow, poppy or opium and stuff like that, and then you're going to go to prison. So it's really not worth it. So in a situation like that, yeah, you might have to take the pill, but You shouldn't be like chomping at the bit to want to do that. You should, if there's something else that helps, you know, hey, call all you Halbash Meow Shy. But if not, hey, just pray to the Lord, just hey, still call all you Halbash Meow Shy. There's something that works. But again, just wanted to put that out there. It's not like again, so what I'm talking about is there's different things, but you can't be so heavenly minded, earthly good, going overboard with it. And it sounds like this individual is kind of going with that. You need to have a child right now. Well, it's not really all things are lawful to me, but not all things are expedient. Yeah, sure, it's lawful. It's even good, but it's not good now. All right, it's not the best time now to be trying to build up a family of tens of tons of children. All right, even 2 or 3 or even 1 man can be a hell. And the other thing is, hell, like me and my wife both want like the idea. Well, don't want, but like the idea of a child. But we've both come to the agreement that now's just not the time, because then you have to. It's so much work to have a child these days. You don't want to send them to public school, because if you send them to public school, they're going to be indoctrinated. They're going to, Yahweh forbid, all right, they go and like get touched or something, because that be happening in the schools. But even if that doesn't happen, they're having mini pride fests in the schools and teaching about men with men and women with women and all this weird freaky shit that shouldn't be happening. So then you say, oh, I'm a homeschool. Well, homeschooling is a lot of work, and then you still have to, if you make enough money at your job where your wife can stay home, which is generally not the case these days and age, because jobs aren't paying that well, and she can stay home and she can look over the children and do all the homeschooling. That's great, but again, that's going to be a rare situation. So I wanted to preface that just by saying that, yes, a woman's glory is her, husband and her child and being bound to them. And yes, that's great. But at the end of the day, it's not, the best time to be doing that now. So for that reason, I don't think that individual is more than likely of GMS. I think he was probably of one of these other camps or one of these offshoots. It might not even been one of the big camps, ISUBK, IUIC. It could have been something they said, but it could have been an offshoot. So who knows? And then she went on, of course, to say, to me, this religion sounds very black male-centered. It's an Israelite-centered religion, actually. It's not black male-centered. It's Israelite-centered. And primarily, yeah, it is male-centered, all right, because the earth revolves around male, all right, male lifestyle. The man, the Lord himself is a man. His son, his only begotten son, is a man, all right? The prophets were men, okay? And that's how it goes. Even the scriptures tell you. This is 1 Corinthians 11:9. It says, neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. Okay? Well, actually, we got to get from verse 8. It says, for the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. Okay? So, yes, the world revolves around men. All right? And a lot of women don't like that. They have an issue with that. But time and time again, they did this survival. They did the survival video. I think it was like England or something like that, or they were at least English that went over there. There might have been different groups of people, but they did an island, and they did it with all men, and they did an island with women. And the women at the end of the first week, I think it was like a week, a lot of women were emaciated, right? They hadn't been drinking water, they hadn't had any food, they weren't able to catch anything. They got scared of a croc. They shouldn't have been eating that shit anyway. But they're all Edomites anyway, so they don't give a shit about the law. The men, all right, first day they caught a alligator and killed it and cooked it. The women, they didn't want to get close or eat it or touch it or have anything to do with it. They couldn't really catch fish. The men were catching fish, tons of fish. So if you didn't have men, the train system was created by men. All right, automobiles were created by men. The computers were created by men. All right, all these things that you women enjoy, all right, you women wouldn't even be able to talk shit online if it wasn't for men. All right, Reddit was created by a man. Twitter was created by a man. Okay, Facebook also created by a man. You wouldn't be able to order all that dumb shit you like on Amazon because Amazon was created by a man. All right, the internet itself was created by a man. The computer also created by a man. Okay, the chairs that you're sitting in created by a man. Okay, the carpet that was laid in your house was created by a man. All right, all those different things were created by men. All right, the bed frames, all right, the ideas for all those things were created by men. All right, all by men. All right, who built your house was men. Okay, so you know, a lot of you women have these issues with men. You have an issue with men talking like this and having an issue with men, but you realize that the Lord's a man, his son's a man, the prophet's a man, all right? The people that made your house was a man, okay? People that are teaching this truth are men, all right? It's all men-centered, but, you know, you have an issue with men, and that's why the lifestyle of the woman these days is not going very well, okay? They're filled with sorrow, they're filled with depression, they have daddy issues, hell, even your daddy issues is caused by a man, right? Because you have issues because a man wasn't in your life. You say, oh, I have all these different issues. Well, because of men. Well, it still shows you, why is a man, if you hate men so much, why is that man causing you so much stress and anguish, right? Why is it causing all that? Because, well, again, you wanted a man in your life because you needed a man in your life, because without a man in your life, you don't have any stability, okay? You don't have any stability at all. At all, okay? So, and those daycares, all right, everybody's talking about, oh, men do this, men do that. But those daycares, there's a significant amount of cases where women are abusing the children, okay? And that's because there's usually no men in there to moderate, okay? And the women will say shit like, oh, if there's a man in there, he'd be touching them. All right, just because some men do that doesn't mean it's all men, okay? So, and it's the same thing with just those things. Just because some women are in those daycares beating the children doesn't mean they're all doing it. But there's a good chunk, all right? There's constantly things coming out on the news that is saying, oh, you know, this woman did this, she pushed this child down, she hit this child, she was abusing the child, she was doing... There was one just recently where I think like a white teacher was like pulling out the hair of a black child. It's a women, man. All right, but everyone focuses on the shortcomings of the man, right? Because this is a matriarchy that we live in. It's disguised as a patriarchy, but it's really a matriarchy. Everything's for the woman, by the woman, right? And, you know, a man can go and, you know, run a stoplight and, you know, get his license revoked, but a woman doesn't, and, you know, she might get a, you know, firm talking. She says, I'm so sorry, pushes her titties up, and then she gets off with it. All right. So anyway, what I wanted to get here was that the first one, let me get my highlighter so I can highlight these as I go. The first one is 1 Timothy 5 and 14 through 15, okay? To show you, to basically prove that, yes, that's the main goal of women, right, is to do exactly what he said, all right? Regardless if it's expedient right now or not, that is the original purpose of, you know, for women. It says 1 Timothy 5 and 14 through 15. This is the King James Version. It says, I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, guide the house, give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully, for some are already turned aside after Satan. And that's 99.9% of the women of the world. They're already turned aside after Satan, right? They're already just, you know, they don't follow Yahweh Shemai Shai. They follow the spiritual demon Satan. They want to go with their lust. They're all about abortions. They're all about sexual promiscuities, all right, worshiping, you know, false gods, you know, Satanism and all this weird fucking crazy shit. I guarantee you, if you looked at, I can go and look up the statistics. What gender are most members of the satanic, or the Church of Satan, of the Church of Satan? And it's probably going to be women, right? Now it says surveys and demographic profiles indicate that most members of the Church of Satan are male. Sure. It says academic research into the organization has found that statistically, the average Satanist is an unmarried white man in his mid-20s, though women have increasingly joined the movement over the decades. So I'm talking about more, not as when it started out, I'm talking about as of the past 10, 12 years, right? Because, of course, back then it was mostly male, you know, focused, as most things were, but things have become more feminine. But in the past 12 years, it still should be more women, predominantly women. It says the Satanic Temple. Okay, that's what it is. Well, I don't know the differences. The Church of Satan, the Satanic Temple. That's what I was thinking of. All right, the Church of Satan is Levan. The Satanic Temple, that's the one that you can actually go and be. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Because if you look at it, all right, there's men, but there's a lot of women out there, right? There's a lot of women. You always see women as the poster face. You know, look, woman, 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 man, 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 woman. All right, man, can't tell what that is. Man, right? But men are going to be in it because they're edgy for the most part, right? They want to be edgy. But yeah, I get those two confused. I thought they were the same thing. The Church of Satan and the Satanic Temple, I thought they were the same thing. Look, you see right here, the Satanic Temple, majority female and non-binary, 58%. And then Church of Satan, majority male, roughly 70%. The Church of Satan is the original one. All right? The Satanic Temple is that newfangled shit. All right. And the Church of Satan's more dark, focused on like LaVey, Anton LaVey. He's the one that started it, focusing on black mass and all that shit. But I think they actually do like shit like I don't know if it's theistic Satanism or LaVeyan Satanism. They do the Enochian keys and all the Enochian magic and shit like that. But Satanic Temple, they just basically masquerade and just tell people that they can chop their dicks off and shit. So of course non-binary is going to be primary one in that. All right, and the T gender, right? But anyway, Satanic Temple, they're the new ones. Okay, that's what I was talking about in the first place. Anyway, those are the ones we went to the other day, Shad, that anybody can go and get a membership there for like $200. So it doesn't make you special. But anyway, for some are already turned aside after Satan. So it shows you that even over there, look, it's a majority of female, right? So they're literally turned aside after Satan. They want to worship, the Baphomet and devil and the Baal, right? And they call him the devil, but the devil is really Esau Edom. Spiritual demon Satan is that spiritual demon. They want to worship all these false gods, Baal and Molech and shit. That's what they're into, right? That's what they want to do. So hey, go ahead and let them, right? It says this is the Ant Bible. It says, so I want younger widows to get married, have children, manage their households, and not give opponents of the faith any occasion for slander. Some widows have already turned away from the faith to follow Satan. Now, widow doesn't always mean someone who had a husband that died. It can also refer to a unmarried woman, right? A woman that has not married. So what I want to touch on here, so it says manage their households. Now that's another thing. A woman actually used to be trustworthy, and they usually actually have a bigger role in the household, right? That was their whole thing, was leading the household. Okay, matter of fact, yeah, you see it right here. Women are depicted as the foundational managers, operators, and guardians of the home. Not necessarily like leaders of the house, but they, like they, it's not really, not leading as being a leader as far as over the man, but like they basically oversee, like see right here, building the home. We're gonna get that scripture anyway, so I'm not gonna spoil it yet. Household operations. Okay, Proverbs 31, I think I actually have that one. 31:7. I don't have that one. So it says, household operations. A woman looketh well to the way of her household, and eateth not the bread of idleness, not being lazy, right? But, looking over her household, making sure it's in order, right? And the man also making sure the household's in order, that she's, everything's being maintained. Again, it's a group thing, right? Of course, you can't, you don't want to have a child without a mother or a child without a father either. So you want to have a good, steady base, all right, and make sure that the household operations that are going out right. Okay, so it's a woman's job to oversee. It's a woman's job to do that, but it's a man's job to oversee and make sure that woman, is keeping the, doing the house stuff correctly. Right here it says, manage the home. Paul instructs the younger women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, and keepers at home. That's Titus 2:4-5. So yeah, they're they're like the manager and operator, all right, but they're not the CEO. Okay, so going back, god damn it, let's just jump to Proverbs 12:4. This is the problem though. Is that a lot of these women Instead of wanting to lead the house, they cause the man all sorts of stress. All right, you're supposed to be a pillar of rest. Okay, that's your homework. Actually, I never give out homework. I always end up doing it. So this is Ecclesiasticus 36 and 24. It says, "He that getteth a wife beginneth a possession." So yes, you are also a possession unto a man. You don't own me. Technically, yes, he does. It says, "A help like unto himself and a pillar of rest." Okay, but a lot of you women aren't pillars of rest anymore. You're, pillars of rottenness, as we're gonna get here in a moment. But that's the thing. You want to be treated all these different types of ways. You want a high value man. You want this. You want the money. You want this and that. But you're not a high value woman. You don't want to, stay at home. You don't want to. And when I mean at staying home, I mean like not being what's the word I was looking for? There's a word specifically biblically. You want to gather abroad. You want to go to the club. You want to go to the nightclub. You want to go to the bar. You want to go over here. You want to hang out with friends. You want to go, over here. You want to go to this game and this and this and this. And that's what you want to do. You don't want to, and I don't mean like staying home, because sometimes you do have to, work as a woman. All right. We're not in the most perfect situation and scenario. And of course, as men, we're not going to be perfect. And as women, you're not going to be perfect. But we do have to try our best. We actually have to put some fucking effort into it. But, women, they want to gather abroad. Okay, you can go and look that up. It's actually in scripture, gather abroad. It says, Ecclesiasticus 26 and 8, "A drunken woman and a gather abroad causeth great anger, and she will not cover her own shame." It's true. A drunken woman, it's the same thing. Like the, drunken woman, a gather abroad, they like to go around and hang out, and she's not going to cover her own shame. She's going to be falling down, or twat's going to be hanging out, or not wearing any panties on. She's wearing a skirt, falls down, or her fucking ass cheeks and her pussy all hanging out of her fucking dress and shit. Look, I'm so drunk, fucking falling down on the chairs and shit. She's making a shame upon herself, But she's not going to cover it, because that's the type. That's what women consider freedom. That's what they want to do. They want the freedom to destroy themselves, as I mentioned yesterday. They don't want to, they don't want to be keepers at home. They don't want to have a man over them. They don't want to be a possession. They don't want to have children. They don't want to do any of these things. They want to walk around drunk, stand up on tables, hey, twerk. Fuck as many. They want to ride the cock carousel and get with many men as they fucking possibly can. They don't want to take the advice of men. They don't want to listen to men. They don't want to do nothing. All right, and the Most High is going to destroy those fucking nasty ass nappy bitches. Okay, and it's gonna happen. Well, yeah, I don't like the way you talk. Well, I don't like you women, so fuck off. All right, we don't. Here's a message from all men. All right, that I'll speak. We don't want you. All right, we don't want you. All right, you nasty ass, throwing it back, fucking, hey, all right, thoughts, all right, of women. We don't want you, all right? So trust me, we're not missing anything by, losing your hand in a fucked up marriage, okay? We're not losing anything. As a matter of fact, we're gaining stuff, all right? We're gaining peace of mind and sanctity, all right, away from your fucking ass, okay? So this right here, so, well, you're supposed to act like a man. Well, you're supposed to act like a woman. Okay, and why are you gonna treat, if someone goes up to you, hey bitch, you fucking asshole, fuck you, you dirty hoe, you dirty, you dark knuckled ass bitch, you fucking ugly ass fucking bitch, you nappy headed ass fucking ugly ass fucking shit stained smelling ass bitch, you're not gonna treat that man with respect, but you'll do that to a man and expect that he, you gotta respect me, I'm a woman, you gotta be a man, and you'll expect us to treat you good when you're over here treating us like shit. All right, well, things are reciprocated, man. All right, the energy you put out is going to be matched. All right, if you go in, you're, nice to a man, you're submissive. All right, he's going to be nice to you. All right, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have some asshole, sure, but if you come in with the energy, oh fuck you, you fucking Jamal, you bitch ass, you fucking small dick having that. What do you think? I love you, Roquisha. You're just such a good woman. No, he's not going to get that, and he's not going to treat you like a wife. You want to know why? Because he doesn't respect you. All right, every time you bitch and you yell and you argue and you fuss and you fight at a man, he respects you less. Okay, he respects you less. He loses that much more respect from you. And a lot of you women, you've been bitching and fighting and arguing and kicking and screaming and calling him names and doing all these different types of things. And at the end of the day, you've been doing this for 3 years. You think there's any love left from him? Hell no, man. He's just with you because you're just something, you got a hole, all right? And he doesn't have any ambition enough to go and get another woman, because really he's not. You're enough for that, all right? So Proverbs 12:4, it says, a virtuous woman is a crown to her husband, but she that maketh ashamed is as rottenness in his bone. All right. And for example, I always give the example of something that I've seen a man get ashamed before. There was one time that me and my wife went into this video game store, And this woman was just complete. It was a black woman. Who would have guessed? All right, with a black man. All right, and he was getting completely bitched by this woman. He was trying to get some game. I don't even remember what it was. I don't remember. Some old game. It was a retro video game store, right? And she was all on him saying, "Oh, you know, you can even play it. Why are you even going to do all this? You know, you don't even need that. You blah 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 blah." Doing all this shit. And this guy, man, you could tell, and just by looking his face, he was just saying, "This fucking bitch, man. I'm so sick of fucking dealing with her. This is fucking embarrassing. You doing this shit in front of everybody. I mean, you got people in line. I was in line right behind them, and you know, you got the workers and shit, and you know that brings a you're bringing a rottenness in his bones, right? You're making him ashamed to even be with you. You know, a man should be like, yep, you know, this is my woman. You know, she's quiet, she shuts up. You know, she doesn't, you know. But when you're over here talking and yelling and fuck you, Marquise, you fucking big-headed ass bit, you know, you're making that man ashamed. You're like, man, why did I even fucking take this bitch out in public, right? Why did I even take her out in public? So, and again, these are the same type of women that do all that. And he goes and takes her out to a nice restaurant, a Cheesecake Factory, and Cheesecake Factory is not enough, right? That's not enough. You want more, all right? When is enough? You know, you take her out to, you know, somewhere expensive. You could spend $100 steak. She's gonna want $200 steaks. You buy her $200 steak. She's gonna want 400 steaks. You want to know why? Because her friend Rochelle, she got $400 steak. You took me out to 200 steaks. You cheap. Right? You better hope Rochelle ain't getting no fucking $1,000 steak, because now that's the new standard. All right? Because she's going after what that man's providing. All right? Because first of all, she happened to just get with a man that's like, for whatever reason, rich. All right? She's using an improbable situation, making it seem like it's probable. Okay? Not every man's gonna have money like that. Right? But Proverbs 12:4, it says, Proverbs 12:4, this is the NIV, it says, a wife of a noble character is her husband's crown, but a disgraceful wife is like decay in his bones. NRSV, it says, a good wife is the crown of her husband, but she who brings shame is like rottenness in his bones. And the question is, if you wouldn't want to be embarrassed, why would you embarrass him? Okay? If you wouldn't want to be screamed at, why are you screaming at him? If you don't want to be hit, why would you hit him? And that's what you see with the womanly world. They're yelling, they're screaming, they're fussing, they're arguing, and they're hitting, all right, slapping him and shit. Right? There was a woman that used to be at my job, and she was always talking about, oh yeah, I hit him because he was talking shit. I hit him. Well, would you want to be hit? No. What would you do if he hit you? You'd call your cousins, you'd call your brothers, but you know, you can hit him all you want. Okay? You can hit him all you want. You can call him ain't shit, but if he calls you ain't shit, right? You could say, oh, you ain't got good dick, but if he says you got fucking loose pussy, you fucking ran through, bitch, now all of a sudden it's an issue, right? See, there's a double standard, man, with you women, okay? You want him to treat you like a princess, meanwhile, you're treating him like a peasant, okay? So, and when that man doesn't respect you, because all you do is bitch and moan and scream and fight and fuss, you think that, oh, you need to treat me better. I'm a woman, you know, he doesn't treat me well. Well, you don't treat him well, all right? So how are you going to get it back if that's what you're putting out, okay? So, the Amp Bible, it says, a virtuous and excellent wife, worthy of honor. And a lot of you women are not worthy of honor. It says, this is the crown of her husband, but she who shames him with her foolishness is like rottenness in his bones. And, you know, the black women, they're not receptacle, but receptive, all right, of this information. They're not receptive of it. They're gonna say, oh, fuck you, you know, you just want to control us and all that. Cool. And that's why you're all single, and that's why you don't have a man, and that's why you're saying, I'm gonna get a man that has $200,000, and you're not. All right, and you're not. All right, keep on dreaming. Dream. That old song used to go, right? Keep on dreaming. All right. So Proverbs 31:10, we were in 31 earlier, but now we're getting 10 through 12. And it says, all right, well, let's read some of the subheadings. In the NIV, it says, epilogue, the wife of noble character. We should, you know, you want a wife of noble character, not of low, all right, character. The NRSV says, ode to a woman of strength. And the Amp Bible says, woman, description of a worthy woman. I like that one probably the best. Or the NIV version. They're both good. So King James Version first, it says, who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies. It's better than money, right? The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life. But the difference is, in this society, these women do their husband evil and not good all the days of their life. Right? They can't trust her, can't tell her anything because you'll flip it. All right? You know? She'll flip it. Say, oh, that's why your daddy did this and that, right? And he's going to be constantly spoiled. He's going to lack everything, okay? So the NIV version, it says, a wife of noble character who can find. She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her. And lacks nothing of value. These women, most of these women these days, all right, you can't have confidence in her. You don't know. You go to work, she's probably, sneaking out behind your back. Okay? It says she brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. NRSV, it says, a woman of strength who can find. She is far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. And we can see the Ant Bible over here stacked up, all right, with extra explanations. So that's what it says. Let's see what it says. Excuse me. It says, description of a worthy woman. All right, verse 10. An excellent woman, one who is spiritual, capable, intelligent, and virtuous. See, that's what men want. All right, well, not all the women. Again, a wicked man is given a portion to a wicked woman. Or, I think it's the other way around. A wicked woman is given a portion to a wicked man. Out in the world, he's not looking for spirituality. He's looking for a piece of ass. And so what do you think you're going to be treated as, all right, if you stoop that low? All right, and a lot of you women, you don't really have any integrity. You'd be more than happy to be treated as a piece of ass if you can get some money out of it. All right, because most of the women of the world are just gold diggers. That's all they are. They don't really love the men that they're with. They just love the money. It says, one who is spiritual, capable, intelligent, and virtuous. That's what you're looking for in a woman. All right, you want a spiritual woman, one that has the same ground base as you. All right, someone who believes in Yahweh Shemiao Shai, like you believe in Yahweh Shemiao Shai, right? Capable. All right, not helpless. All right, can't do anything, can't cook, can't clean, can't shut up, can't do nothing. All right, can't do anything. Just messing up constantly, right? Intelligent. You have a dumb woman, super dumb. All right, you say, what'd you do this for? Huh? Well, what do you mean? Why did you? There's one woman I saw online that that bitch infuriated me. She put diesel in her man's motorcycle that took gasoline, and he was like, what did you do? And he was being nothing but nice. Okay, he was like, that guy had far more patience than I had. He was like, what is this doing in here? She's like, I filled it up. He's like, with the green pump? Well, yeah, that's and he's like, Brittany, that's is a white woman and a white man. Like, he was like, Brittany, that's diesel. What does that mean? It's diesel. I use gas. Well, yeah, it's gas. I put it in there. No, this is diesel. Well, what do you mean? Will it not work? No, it won't work because my vehicle takes gas. Well, what's the difference? You don't want someone that's that, fucking dumb. All right, you don't want that. And then virtuous. All right, what does virtuous mean? Let's go and define that. Okay, let's go define virtuous. I'm trying to be lazy here and just... I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to have to Control C and then cop it over. So virtuous, what does it mean? Someone or something possessing high moral standards, righteousness, and ethical excellence. Right? Behaving in a deeply honest, correct, and principled manner. You're principled, all right? You don't want some fucking wild animal, all right? You don't want that. Someone who's violent and, all these, is godless. You don't want that. Nobody wants it. Would you want that in a man? Don't answer that because a lot of you women don't know what you want, all right? You just want money and you don't care if the man smacked me up McGee. So it says, who is he who can find her? Her value is more precious than jewels, and her worth is far above rubies or pearls. The heart of her husband trusts in her with secure confidence, and he will have no lack of gain. She comforts, encourages, and does him only good and not evil all the days of her life. And man, you can't ask much more than that, right? But again, these women nowadays, they're all, messed up in the mind, and they have all these women influencers that they're listening to, and those fucking books like Cosmopolitan, all right, that are having them all fucked up in the head, have way too high of expectations. All right, here it is. They're from the ghetto, and they need to get a man that has, makes a $400,000 a year paycheck. Want him to be 6'3". They want him to be black, and they want him to be, clean cut and not married. Right? Female. Here it is. Female delusion calculator. Right? Here it is. Okay, so you want a man between 20 and 40. Fuck it. 20 and 55. All right? Don't want a man that's married. All right? You want him to specifically be black. Right? Minimum height, 6 foot. All right? Don't want him to be fat. Minimum income, probably at least 100K, right? You probably want 100K. Most women want 200K, right? Probability. According to statistical data, the probability of a guy in the U.S. male populations that's not married, black, at least 6 foot tall, not obese, and earns at least $100,000 per year is, in the age of 22 to 55, is 0.060%. All right. Delusion scale, 5 out of 5. You don't belong on this planet. But say you had more reasonable explanations. Okay. 20 to 50, he can be any color. Minimum height, I don't know, 5'8". He can be a little bit of weight. Minimum income, we'll just go with the average of 30K. Right? 20%. All right, you're down to earth, right? There's a lot of people, right? There's a decent amount, all right? Still 20%, but, you know, you have a good chunk, okay? You have a good chunk. Yeah, so, you know, hell, if you go down to any, right, it'll bump up to 30%. But again, you know, minimum income, doesn't matter. Minimum height, I just say 5'8", right? So, you know, 35%, you're pretty good on that, right? You're pretty good on that. Doesn't matter. But, you know, again, female delusion calculator. There's another one, male and female delusion calculator. Let's try the female one. All right, what are we looking for? A female. All right, looking for a woman. I'm looking for a black woman. Those ages are fine. Exclude married. I don't care. She can be any. I don't care. 4'11" max height. Don't care. Minimum income. I don't care. Doesn't really matter. Don't want new BMI 30. You know, she can be a little bit bigger. I don't mind too much of a little bigger of a girl. Result normal. Oh my God, yes, that's too in depth. All right, I'm not doing all that. I'm not doing all that. But anyway, you know, and for you women, man, at the end of the day, it's more so about you women than you men with your delusion here, because you're not hurting us any. Okay, we can go and just we have plenty of fish in the sea for women. All right. And we can go and be a passport bro if we want. All right, and go out of the United States to get a woman. You women, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you leave. Those men over there aren't gonna want an American woman. Okay, they're not gonna want one. So you'd be better off, you know, getting a man, you know, helping him build. All right, getting yourself, you know, a good situation. All right, and you know, helping stability build and grow. All right. So Proverbs 14:1, it says, "Every wise woman buildeth her house, but the foolish plucketh it down with her hands." So this is the Ant Bible. It says, "Contrast of the upright and the wicked. The wise woman builds her house on a foundation of godly precepts, and her household thrives. But the foolish one who lacks spiritual insight tears it down with her own hands by ignoring godly principles." And what's that? Letting the man lead. All right, understanding that you're in subjection to a man. All right, understanding that the man was not created but for you for the man. Right, all these different things add up, because when you have that, you can have a good, healthy relationship. Okay, because you can't have a healthy relationship without both of you believing in Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. That's the healthiest relationship that you can have, because you're gonna have that ground, you know, that same foundation. All right, you're gonna understand. Oh, we don't do that because, you know, the Lord wouldn't like that. If you have an unbelieving woman, well, she's not going to have that. She's not going to have anything to really hold her back. Okay? That's the same thing with men. All right? You're not going to have anything as a man that holds that man back. He could be doing all sorts of crazy shit. He could be on the DL. All right? You could find out that your man that you've been with is on the DL. He likes, you know, selling the Hershey Highway. All right? Or hitting the Hershey Highway. All right? Or, you know, so you don't want that. And that happens a lot. That happens a lot in the world. These women get with these men. They find out, you know, years down the road that they're DL. And their friend Louie, all right, they ain't regular friends. They're butt buddies. Okay, and that happens out a lot. So again, the most important thing in a relationship is having the same spiritual foundation. All right, because that man's not gonna be doing no mo shit. You're not gonna be doing no ho shit. All right, you're gonna be honoring him. All right, he's gonna be giving, you know, honor to you. All right. It's a good, you know, and again, still, we're under the curses. It's not going to be 100% perfect. All right. You're going to go off from time to time. Women are going to snap sometimes. Men are going to snap sometimes. That's just how it's going to go. But at the end of the day, you'll have a better foundation and a better ground level of foundation, all right, than these people out in the world. So let's get 2 Timothy 3 and 6, and then we're going to close out 3 and 6 through 7. It says, if I want to go through 5. 6 is fine, right? It's just dealing with these women, right, specifically. So, King James Version, it says, "For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth." So there's a lot of individuals out there that's not going to come to the knowledge of the truth, and really it's because they're holding on to different shit, all right, like this. They're going on, r/black girls, and they're listening, they're all playing into their own delusions. Let's read some more of these comments real quick, and then we'll get the other translations and close out. It says, "My mother is one. She's incredibly misogynistic. Definitely fits the definition of a pick-me narcissist, a black woman, and MAGA. So that kind." They said, "I beg your pardon? MAGA? I don't think that Dr. Umar would support that. I don't think she's MAGA. I think you're lying. All right, because if she's in this truth, quote unquote, and she's also MAGA, why would you be in this truth and also wanting to make America great again? That doesn't make any sense. I think you're bullshitting. I think you're lying. So I think you're full of shit." And that's what these people do. They lie. All right, they're a bunch of fucking liars. It says, "Yeah, my grandfather was one. Funny enough, social media calls them hoteps." All right. It says, "My friend's boyfriend of 6 years, he had a failed truck business that he keeps afloat by living with his mother. She's allowing it because she doesn't feel like looking for anyone else." What else? Let's see. They're harassing people. I'm a Christian. I read the Bible. That's not good enough for him either. Of course it's not, because you're worshiping the white man. Just ignore them. My father claims to be one. My partner's dad is one. See, this guy's bugged out. I'm not gonna even read that one. That's just stupid. You can pause it. They tend to be very rules for thee and not for me type, right? Well, yeah, because women have different set of guidelines. Okay, it says, and working within their misogyny or to police black women and shaming their actions while they do as they please. Talking to them is so draining, honestly. Let's see. Yeah, that looks like IUIC. Your impression is correct. I first saw them when they would come onto my college campus and yell at interracial couples. People who are visibly queer and girls whose clothes are too revealing for them. Let us just be wicked. Let us just be wicked, right? It says, and sometimes they chase me down in parking lots and try to give me their pamphlets. So yeah, what else do we got? It says, grew up in the religion. The gymnastics you have to go through in your head to make things make sense is insane. I never looked back and never. Well, it's not that you have any mental gymnastics. It's that you had to do that because you never truly understood, right? It makes sense once you read, but a lot of people don't understand it. It says, there's a bunch of stuff. Just move there, girl, run. They're the worst. I was called a slave by one when I was out with my boyfriend, and they almost got into a fight. Well, yeah, you're probably with a white man, right? That's probably what you're with. Let's see. Sometimes I see them near my dorm. What else do we got? Scary people. So yeah, I pretty much read all the comments there. But anyway, this is 2 Timothy 3 and 6 through 7 in the AMP Bible. It says, verse 6, for among them are those who worm their way into homes and captivate morally weak and spiritually dwarfed women, weighed down by the burden of their sins, easily swayed by various impulsive. You're impulsive, all right? You want to, go and get laid, you'll go and do it. right? It says always learning and listening to anybody who will teach them, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. And that's the thing, you'll listen to all these, what these women have to say. A lot of these women go wrong by listening to other women. All right, they listen to these other women and listen to what they have to say. Here it is, they've been married for 10 years and they're listening to their friend who's single and never been with, and only, they've only ever had sexual flings. All right, so what's the point? Right here, the NRSV says, for among them are those who make their way into households and captivate immature women, overwhelmed by their sins and swayed by all kinds of desires, who are always studying yet never able to recognize truth. I think I like that one the best. Did we read the King James? I think we did, yeah. But anyway, I'll read it again. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. So, NIV, all right, we'll get that one and close out with that one. It says, they are the kind who worm their way into houses and gain control over gullible women who are loaded down with sins and swayed by all kinds of evil desires, always learning but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. So yeah, I like all these. All right, are swayed by all kinds of evil desires. Immature women overwhelmed by their sins and swayed by all kinds of desires. Spiritually dwarfed women weighed down by their sins, easily swayed by various impulses. Impulsive, right? Swayed by sins and their evil desires and all those different types of things, right? So, yeah, man. If you want to go and destroy yourself, you have the freedom to do so in Babylon the Great without this truth. But this truth does not give you the freedom to destroy yourself if you're actually keeping it to the best of your ability. All right, it actually sets up guidelines and moral frameworks for you to not destroy yourself. All right, to keep you from doing that. But out in the world, yeah, you're free to destroy yourself. So if that's what you count as freedom, hey, go and be free. All right, just when you wake up and in death, right, don't come running crying to us, because we know that's going to happen as well. All right. And that's, again, we talked about that in other lessons. 7 women shall be joined to one man, right? You can go and look. There's your homework. That will be your homework. 7 women joined to one man, KJV. All right. So go and look at that. And that's in the end days, man, because you're going to be wanting to try to find a husband. And I thoroughly believe this is just a belief of mine, because we are going to have spiritual power. I believe one of the things that we're going to have in that day, if not full spiritual power, which we're going to have it right before Esau tries to kick off with all this different, mass race war shit. Because again, we're going to have it, or else there's going to be a bloodbath, and the apostles even talk about it. Right before Yahushua comes back, right before he comes back, when all the shit really gets bad, that's when the spiritual power is going to kick off. But I believe one of the things that the men are going to have is the ability to almost really like peer into the past with you different women out there. You're gonna say, please, take me. Take me as a your wife, and we're gonna have like a That's So Raven flashback. We're gonna see all the things, you were bitching this man and called him names, and you were throwing it back on Instagram, and you were on TikTok making videos about men and how they're pieces of shits, and we saw the posts that you made on Reddit, and we're saying, nah, get away from me, you harlot, right? So I believe sincerely, all right, there's gonna be something along that effect at least. But again, that's just, one of my opinions, all right? There's nothing in a scripture that says we're going to 100% get something like that, but I believe that that's one of the powers, all right, that we're going to be able to have. But that's where we're going to close out, all right? So, take the advice or don't. It's up to Yahweh Shem Yahushua at the end of the day. If you get it or not, it's not up to you. So, those who get it, get it. Those who don't, well, oh well. That's where we're going to close out. Lord, it was edifying. Again, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakak. Shalom to you brothers and sisters out there. Keep enduring, keep the faith. We're almost out of here. Until next one, Lord willing. Shalom.